You can thrive with lupus.
That's right.
That you can have a life, that you can have a family, that you can have a job or career.
Dr. LaTonya Bias's life changed when she was first diagnosed with lupus over 20 years ago. Although lupus chose her, she overcame and learned to adapt to lupus while living her life to the fullest. Mrs. Bias will share lessons, inform, inspire, and with a variety of professionals and friends, encourage lupus sufferers to take back their life. Join LaTonya as she guides you on a journey through life with an autoimmune disease and teaches you ways to love your life with lupus. This is Lupus, It Chose Me. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lupus, It Chose Me podcast. We are excited once again to have with us a very special guest. And we can't wait to introduce Gabrielle to you. She is a lupus advocate. She is a lupus warrior and so much more. So I'm just going to jump right in and let her tell us a little bit more about herself, and then we're going to start this conversation.
Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Like she said, my name is Gabrielle Davis. I fancy myself a lupus advocate. I'm a lupus patient, a former dialysis warrior as well. Shout out to the dialysis warriors out there. And I'm a mom to a toddler, so that's exciting to say the least.
That is, yes.
Very. And I'm a full-time worker. Right now, I act as our corporate communications leader for an engineering firm that serves the Southeast United States. And so that in itself,
that's a lot.
It's a lot. And so I'm just here to kind of, provide some inspiration, some education, connection, all those things. So people can get an example of, what a lupus warrior can look like. There's so many variations of the roles we play and our symptoms and what's possible. And I hope leaving this podcast interview that people can see that you can thrive with lupus.
That's right.
That you can have a life, that you can have a family, that you can have a job or career that, is fulfilling. And I hope and pray that that's what comes across. And I'm just excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Welcome. Welcome.
Well, we're so excited. Dr. Bias is the founder of the Love Life Lupus Foundation. And so we were so inspired by your story and some of the things that you have been challenged with, yet at the same time, loving your life with lupus, living a full life with lupus. And that really is why we're here and what we want to share and why we're so excited to have you with us. So yes. Let's just start with what's important. What matters most to you in your life right now?
Peace. Peace.
Absolutely.
And prioritizing myself. And that was a hard lesson to learn. I feel like, and this is a generalization, but when I talk to other lupus warriors, there's just a lot of busyness. There's a lot of things that we're trying to tackle. And for me, I can only speak about myself. That came from this need to prove that I wasn't lupus. And that's okay, you know what I'm saying? But when we get so focused on that, we can abandon ourselves. So I say my peace in prioritization of self, because I can't help anybody if I don't prioritize myself and my needs. If I'm not able to speak up or set boundaries or say no to things or make sure my time or my quiet time is at the top of the list and then I can pour, I'm no good to anybody. And it becomes just a cluster, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Of things falling apart, things not getting done. Then I feel bad. I feel guilty. It's an avalanche of emotion and issues and chaos that didn't have to happen if I was able to say, no, I can't do that today. I can do that tomorrow. Or I can tell myself the dishes don't have to be washed today. You know what I'm saying? They're not going anywhere and nobody's going to, have a problem with that but me. So I had to prioritize tasks and I had to prioritize myself. And with doing all that, peace has come. I have a level of peace just now that I've just achieved that I had to learn, and it took many years to learn. But yeah, those are I guess I not one thing. Sorry, I did not follow
That's
instructions,
okay.
but
It's
peace,
always multiple. Now take
yes,
me back.
peace and prioritization.
Yes, take me back when you were first diagnosed. I know as a lupus warrior myself, that's one of my big questions when I interview our warriors. You know, how was it for you? Take me back when you first was diagnosed.
I was a newlywed. I was excited. I had just gotten married to my husband in November of 2008. And in February 2009, I had what we would call classic flare, but didn't know that. I was inflamed and just wasn't feeling myself, dehydrated, and my joints I felt like a tin man. I needed oil and I didn't know what was going on. I found myself taking all of this medication and for Tylenol, thinking that, I was just nervous because it was our first Valentine's Day as a married couple. And I just wanted to be special. And to release some stress or what I thought I was doing, I went to a masseuse and booked a massage. And that was like the worst thing that I could have done, because what it did was move that inflammation throughout my body. And by the end of the night, I was in the ER and not at the restaurant as we had planned.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a whole scene. It was a movie, as they say. And so I spent like 4 days there, and they had no clue what was going on. And Dr. Weiss, I'm sure you understand, there's just not a lot of information given on lupus and what it entails, what it looks like. And so that was my experience, that, these educated doctors who I'm sure are very good at their jobs, just couldn't help me a lot. All they could tell me is that my white blood cell count was off and that I was severely dehydrated. Thankfully, I had a Hispanic primary care doctor at the time that had worked with many, many patients and patients of color, and recognized that this was an autoimmune response. And he generalized it as a connective tissue disease. And my rheumatologist in July was finally able to diagnose me with systemic lupus. And, that seems like a long time, but you and I know that it can be months, several months, and years. Thankfully, I'm thinking the diagnosis time is moving up, but there are so many symptoms that come along with lupus, and it can be tricky even for the most, like I said, most knowledgeable doctor to kind of parse, is this lupus or is this something else?
Right.
So that's my diagnosis journey. It came at a time in my life that, I was just beginning my marriage with my husband. And thankfully, we were friends first and we had a bond. But I can't tell you that bond wasn't tested.
I know.
And thankfully, we celebrated 13 years in November.
Nice.
And
awesome.
Yes. My
Congratulations.
FAMU connection. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Florida A&M University, for my husband. But yeah, it was a journey. It was a ride. It was a ride the first couple of years, for sure. My treatment plan.
Oh, wow.
Let me ask you a question related to something you said earlier. You said, when I asked you what matters most, you were talking and you said, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't lupus. What did you mean by that?
I wanted to make sure that lupus didn't define me. Like, I wanted to make sure when I was talking about having to prove myself, it was out of this necessity to make sure that I was seen as valuable. Lupus took a lot of my to-do and performance-driven spirit, which was a silver lining because I had to find another way to find my worth.
That's right.
And it drove me to do all these things that I knew I didn't have any business doing. I would say yes to things I didn't want to do. I would say yes to things that taxed me physically, but I was going to push through to show people that lupus did not stop me.
That's
But at
right.
the end of the day, it did, because it
Indeed.
put me on the couch for several days.
That's
It
right.
called me out of work for 7 days. It
Mhm.
made me cancel things that I really did want to do. I
Exactly.
really did want to spend time with that friend. I really did want to go on this trip with my husband. But because I was too busy doing things that at the end of the day really didn't serve me or anything that I was about, just because I was asked to do it, I had to get rid of that mentality. I still don't think there's anything wrong with assessing what you want to push through on. Sometimes the night out with a girlfriend or a date night with your husband is worth a push through, because you may not get a lot of opportunities like that. But I was saying yes to randomness. You know what I'm saying? I was saying yes to making multiple trips on a weekend, knowing that I can only do 1 or 2 tasks a day. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so I had to come to the point, get good and tired, and say, this no longer serves me. If you can't see my value for me as a person separate from what I can do and where I can be, this might not be a relationship that serves me, or we might not need to be as intimate a friend,
Yes.
you know, as we are. You know what I'm saying? And gradually, I mean, people start to kind of understand that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was a lot of it was me having grace with myself, having self-compassion for myself, and honoring myself outside of the value that I provided by being a doer and a performance-driven person. So those are some self-realizations that I had to come through for myself. And, you know, like I said, a lot of people say you don't know how strong you are until you're tested. For me, the silver lining was that. And also, I didn't know my worth until what I thought was valuable was pretty much taken away from me, when I had to say, I was forced to say no. I was forced to put some things down that didn't, you know, I wasn't responsible for, you know?
Absolutely.
Listen, those are lessons that everybody needs to learn how to do.
Absolutely.
Prioritizing self and being able to say no and setting boundaries in terms of this is what I am able to do. This is what I am willing to do. And I am not going to push myself beyond this because it won't be good for me or anybody else. We all need to learn how to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for that wisdom.
And it's good to hear that from someone else too, because I figured that sometimes I could be selfish when it comes to me saying no. You know, my children and family, we all want to do so many different things. And it's like, oh, I can't do this, but I can try to do that. So, and then, you know, I run into that point of, okay, maybe I am being a little selfish. But like you said, in reality, in the end, I'm the one that's going to be laid out in the bed for a few days versus, you know, after the enjoyment, everybody's having a blast.
Everybody had a good time and they're going on about their merry way.
Yes,
and now
I'm laid
I was
out.
like, why am I resentful and bitter and all these things? It's because you said yes to something that you probably should have said no to.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, but it did teach me, and I'm so glad that we're bringing awareness. Man, it's so important for people to understand. It made me listen to my body more. It made me really, like, if I felt a single ache, if I coughed, I'm trying to figure out why I'm coughing. If my eyes start like a drip of water, oh my God, okay, wait a minute. Let me figure this out. Why is my eyes dry? It makes you really, really pay attention. And the temperature of weather. I'm not sure what the weather's like out there with you.
It is rainy and you already know.
Oh yeah, so we know, right? And Texas, I love Texas, but the weather is so bipolar. Like we were at 30 something degrees and 86 today. We had hail day before yesterday. So know my body was going, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, what's going on? You know, and it was like, okay, keep it together. You know, so yes, understanding, and I appreciate you bringing awareness. And I know that you mentioned strength. You know, and I definitely wanted to go back to that. I want you to give me some of your strengths. Tell the world, tell the Lupus warriors, what is your strengths? What is holding you down? Because you are a warrior.
Yes, thank you. My strength is resilience. and perseverance. And I think that's something that we have to learn. If you don't have it, you will get it. One of my favorite quotes is, "Beautiful girl, you can do hard things." It is a motto that I think a lot of lupus warriors can relate to because it's hard. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Living this life and then choosing to be the best you can be is a hard thing. We have a lot of pushback in our bodies. We have to get through some mental barriers. We have to deal with close family and friends and some of the, walls that they can bring with ignorance and lack of understanding. We have to deal with the medical community if our doctors and our caretakers are, as far as medical knowledge goes, are not on board.
That's right.
And that takes a lot of resilience and perseverance to decide that, to be a self-advocate.
Absolutely.
I say before you advocate for anybody else, you need to learn how to advocate for yourself.
Amen.
And you just build that over time. You build that over time because it's essential. Nobody's perfect. And so, little things can get slipped by, from as serious being in the hospital and having the wrong medication to some minor things with, maybe family and friends not really understanding or, attitude being thrown your way because you're not able to do this or that. Your body saying, "You said you were going to do that today, but I'm not doing that today." And having to work with your body. And so it trains you. It trains you to be strong. It trains you to be resilient and to persevere, to go after what you want. It just might look different. So those are some of the skills that I've learned for sure.
And this will be such a wealth for the community. They definitely need to understand that. And to add to that, don't get a new doctor. Because if you get a new doctor, it's like starting all over again. They want you to start from here. In order for us to really define what's really going on, let's start back with just doing this. And you're like, well, no, here's my records. I've already did this already. Well, I haven't did it. So as your doctor, we need to do A, B, C. And it's like a roller coaster. You're starting all over again from blood work to x-rays and it's like really, if you know anything about, especially rheumatologists, it seems like in Texas, they're dropping like flies. So I have to continue to find one to the point where I went to see a naturopathic doctor because I couldn't keep up with my rheumatologist. They were floating around, leaving so quickly.
It's crazy, period. It's the same over here in Florida.
It is?
They seem to be, goodness. I don't know what's going on in the field. I don't know if people really... But I'm telling you, it'd be a wealth for them because we have an elderly population and then you have people who need it for other things like us. And so, the harvest is there. I mean, there's patients out there that you could be seeing, but there's so few in between that it takes months. It is not uncommon for you to... I think it took me 3 months to get in to see my initial visit.
Yes.
And there's so many things that can happen and develop between that
especially
time.
with us. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so I would say keep your doctor if you can. I mean, sometimes there's just relationships that are just not working.
Right.
And I wouldn't want anybody to stay with a doctor that is just not hearing them out at all. But a lot of times, with some self-advocacy and what you say and what you're willing to do and what you want to do, once you step up, a lot of doctors are saying, okay, they're really paying attention to their body. They really know what they want. So I'm going to work with them. And hopefully that's the case for most.
Yeah.
But, it's hard.
Gabrielle, I've got a question for you. You guys are having this conversation about doctors, right? And so I'm wondering, what do you know now that you didn't know? One of the things that you guys have both talked about is keep your doctor. If you can develop a good relationship with them, keep that doctor so that you don't have to keep repeating, the history over and over again to each physician. But what do you know now that you wished you'd known when you were first diagnosed that you could share with lupus warriors?
Yes.
It sounds simple. But ask questions about your medication. and what side effects can come with that. And trust your treatment plan. And I say that because I was young, I was a busybody, I was all over the place, and kidney disease had not yet manifested. So I'm just feeling sore and I'm feeling a little down. Not that I wasn't hurting or anything, but I was just really honestly taking some of the medication and throwing on some aspirin and going on about my day. And I wish it was hammered into me how serious this diagnosis is, some potential ways it could go. I always have a small regret. I try not to have regrets in my life, but I wonder what would have happened if I had really educated myself on my medication and really taken the diagnosis seriously, because I was in denial. And there's a lot of emotional things that doctors don't talk to you about. They give you your treatment plan. They tell you this is what it is, but they don't give you the full picture of what this diagnosis can look like to you. What some of the symptoms were. Some of the symptoms are depression and anxiety. And it's so much helpful if you are given that emotional side.
Yes.
If they recommended, okay, you might need to see someone to talk this through about the changes that could come with this diagnosis. Therefore, you're setting yourself up mentally, because that's the name of the game. I really believe it starts with the mental. If you are determined, right, in your mindset, if you say, okay, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to take my medicine, I'm going to do what they tell me to do, I'm going to look for some other ways to improve X, Y, and Z. Now you're in the game mentally, and you're prepared to take on some of these hard things, knowing it's going to be hard. But to get thrown into a lupus diagnosis without a mental health check is negligent. Yeah. I'm just going to say that. And there needs to be a factor with doctors in making sure that goes hand in hand, at least to say, I advise you to maybe, for the first couple of months or the first half of the year, to see someone to talk this through on what that entails.
And provide the resource.
Yes, and provide the resource. Because, I feel like patients may not be skilled in knowing which therapist to find, or, which way to go.
Well, and you're devastated, right?
Absolutely.
So you're already devastated because you have the diagnosis, and then they tell you need to see somebody. So not only do you think that you're dying, but you think that you're dying crazy because they're telling you that you need to see somebody.
And without context. And so this is a simple conversation of, this is just to help you navigate these first few months or year or however long you feel like you need. Personally, I've been in therapy for 8 years, and not just lupus related, but anything. I feel like if you have the means, everybody needs a therapist. There's so much going on, and it doesn't have to be anything catastrophic. This is just to help you navigate and for you to, use tools that are given in therapy to navigate some things that you need to overcome, whether it be from your past or present or things that are coming down the line, like a lupus diagnosis that could bring potential issues.
I agree.
I think that is an excellent word to use as it relates to therapy. It's a tool for navigation, because that is exactly what it is. But I would be remiss if I didn't navigate us to a break really quickly.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk some more, continue this conversation, because I think there's just so much packed in here, and you've got so much more to share with us. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Sure.
Author LaTonya Bias has had lupus for over 3 decades. The diagnosis and disease totally overwhelmed her life, changing everything. This medical memoir chronicles her journey with the autoimmune disease, offering wisdom, research, and personal anecdotes about how to best live with lupus, how to reclaim your life, all the while providing inspiration and grace to both newly diagnosed and long-term survivors. Available online at Amazon, Westbow Press, Barnes & Noble, and Love Life Lupus Foundation.com. lupusforever.org.
Again, I want you also to tune in to our podcast. And if in turn you're willing to make a donation, please go to lovelifelupusfoundation.org. Welcome back. And we were just talking to Miss Davis with all this awesome conversation. If you missed it, rewind and you can hear from the beginning. All right, Miss Davis. So one of the questions I want to ask you is what would you say your greatest challenge is living with lupus? What is your greatest challenge?
This is not so much the case anymore, but just recently, I am blessed enough to have received a kidney transplant in July.
Congratulations.
Praise God. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I can't, it's night and day.
Is it really?
I am so grateful.
Oh,
absolutely.
wow.
It's like the lights came on.
Okay.
And my rheumatologist told me that it would be this way, but you don't know and I could tell the minute I woke up and he was coherent. My eyes were wider. I don't even want to get into it because I'm pregnant.
It's okay. People need to know. It's good.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
It's a gift.
Because you got a lot of people that stir away from it. They'll say, no, I don't want it, So to hear that there's light. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. No. It was the best. I definitely wanted a kidney transplant. And for it to happen is just the greatest thing. But
what was
go ahead.
I was going to ask, what was life like before your transplant? Can you just tell us a little bit about how you would feel then and how you feel now?
You just never knew what you were going to get. I mean, from the weather to one wrong move to, the medication maybe not taking like it took yesterday. There are just so many variables. It was like a big science project and you thought you had the formula, but the formula switched up on you. And so you do everything you need to do. You eat right. And there's so many different ways to eat, that you think of to try to make things better. It was like whack-a-mole, seriously. Like I said, pre-transplant, I was on dialysis for almost a little bit over 4 years. And what that entailed for me by the end of it was having to be either dwell with dialysis solution for 3 hours and then be hooked up to the machine for 8. So imagine that with a newborn and working full time. Yeah. I look back at now and I seriously don't know how I did it.
Grace of God.
By the grace of God, you're absolutely right. By the grace of God, because it took up so much of my life. Yeah. I was literally and figuratively chained to that machine. It was essentially my lifeline. Before that, it just looked like a lot of doctor's appointments, a lot of trying to get things right, a lot of coordination. And Dr. Bias, you can probably relate to this. There is so much exhaustion that comes with trying to coordinate and get doctors on the same page. That's a job. A patient being a patient is a full-time job by itself, trying to make sure that everybody's talking, everybody's on the same page. That doesn't come naturally. That's a patient's responsibility, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
my book,
I can't imagine.
Go ahead. I was going to say, you keened on it when I wrote my first book, Lupus, It Chose Me. I said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And people thought that was funny, but in reality, it was funny for readers to read, but to understand that, one day is good, one day is bad, half a day is good, a half a day is bad. You never know what you will get. You don't know what would trigger it. You don't know somebody, and I use this term all the time. You stump your toe and all of a sudden now your back hurt.
Now there's a bigger application.
It's like, what happened? I stumped my toe. And
I just bent down to tie my shoe and now,
now I got a migraine headache.
Yes, right.
It's like, what?
It's crazy. Absolutely. I mean, I tell you what, life skills is it's like a boot camp for life.
Yes.
You and that's why I say you can do hard things, because literally doing your best to live a life that is fulfilling and that you get joy out of, you have to fight. You have to fight. You have to fight feelings and emotions and do the things you want to do. I can't tell you how many times that I didn't feel like taking my medication.
Mm-mm.
I didn't feel like doing the things I knew I needed to do, but I know if I didn't do it, that I would pay for it, or there'd be something that fell apart for me.
Yes.
You know, and that's why I say it has to be going back to the mental.
Yes.
To have to say, I can't go by my emotions. You know what I'm saying? I have to get on the dialysis machine whether I want to or not. I can acknowledge that it sucks. I can acknowledge that I don't want to do it, but I still got to do it, because if I don't, there's bigger implications down the line.
Worse.
Now I'm talking about my literal life being in danger if I were to follow this path of not wanting to do the very thing that is helping me be here and able to be with my son and my husband and my family. You know what I'm saying?
So Gabrielle, as you talk about treatment plans and doing, you know, all the things that it requires so that you can function, functional medicine is a trend right now. And I don't know what your treatment plan is, and if it includes functional medicine, integrative medicine, or you know, a combination of anything holistic along with traditional medicine. Can you talk to us about a little bit about your treatment plan? We know it includes dialysis, but what else is there that helps you every day?
There are some key medications that were, I guess, maintenance drugs. Prednisone was something that I had to have just for the level of inflammation. I would mix in some turmeric every now and then, but for the main part, it was the prednisone that helped me. And we call that, it's a lifeline, but it's also something that a lot of lupus warriors don't like, just because of the side effects that can happen with it. As far as the moon face, I had that, you know what I'm saying? And just other things that the appetite, the fog and everything that can come with it. But it helped that inflammation. And so that was a key part of my treatment plan. Plaquenil is another one that I am still on as a part of my treatment plan. So those are the two main medications. And then there is some kidney medication, mycophenolate, that I took and I still take to help bridge the gap between my kidneys and the new kidney and my body, to make sure that it's viable and remains functioning as it should. I didn't really dabble a lot into, I guess, Eastern medicine or integrative medicine, because my kidneys came into play. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have anything that would throw that off. It was a very concise treatment plan that it was working. I didn't want to mess with it, and neither did my doctors. But there are some people who, you know, make the decision that they want to go off medication, and they might be able to do that. But that wasn't my story, because the kidneys and, you know, some and other organs might have came into play. And, you know, after that, it's a domino effect. So I wanted to be very careful. But what I say to that is do your homework. I'm not one of those people who say, you know, throw the whole Western medicine treatment plan away and adopt this. Some people will say that. I think that's dangerous, quite frankly. I think, you know, it's trial and error, as in anything that you try to see if it works for your body. Every case is different. There are no two cases of lupus that are alike. And we all have a different makeup and what works for our body. Turmeric might work for somebody else's inflammation, but it might not touch the inflammation for me. And that's okay. Now I have to find out what works. And I like to include in functional medicine, not just integrative or, you know, natural, holistic things, but moving your body, right? Eating foods that you know benefit you. Don't eat something that you know is going to cause inflammation.
Like
sometimes we have to do the things that we don't like. Yes, we have to do the things that we don't like to do. We want to enjoy that meal that we know and love and that we grew up with, but it might not be best. Or you have to do the risk. Okay, I might feel this tomorrow, so I'm not gonna do
Yes.
anything
I'm gonna eat
tomorrow.
this
I'm
piece
gonna
of
have an
fried
off day
chicken right
tomorrow.
now,
Right.
but
I'm gonna have my fried chicken and my whatever. But guess what? Who's not gonna be out the house tomorrow? And I'm
is
okay with that.
is me.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Right. So you got to make
Mhm.
allowances for your
Gotta make
choices.
it. Hmm.
But movement is always a good thing, whether,
Absolutely.
it's just doing some leg
Little bit.
movements or like
Mhm.
me, I'm now able to do a lot more than I've ever been able to do. So that's helped me not just physically, but mentally as
Yeah.
well. I think there's something about knowing that you're taking care of yourself. Like,
Yes.
okay, I got a bubble bath waiting for me later. That's
Mhm.
fancy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's right. That
Mhm.
makes me feel like, wow, you're really taking care of yourself. Or,
That's right.
the real life taking care, because it's not just a bubble bath. We know that self-care is
Mhm.
more than that. But it's like, wow, I really did follow up on that appointment like I was supposed to. My doctor
Mhm.
said that I need to see X, Y, and Z. I made the call, and now that appointment is set. And I'm good to go with what I need to be doing to take care of myself. Or I really did go outside and take that walk. I didn't just say I was going to take a walk. I took a walk, and now I feel so much better because I
Yes.
made a promise to myself and I
Mhm.
kept that promise.
Yep.
And that's what I was talking about in the beginning of the interview, was making myself a priority.
That's
You
right.
know what I'm saying? And not putting even my family sometimes.
Mhm.
They'll be there. I will get to them and they will get all of me. But they're not going to get me if I'm like abandoning myself. And essentially that's what you're doing.
Yes.
Let's just call it what it is.
I
You
know,
know what I'm
right?
saying?
I
'Cause
got a
sometimes we gotta
dog
see the
just
real
for
picture.
that. I got a dog to be able to walk her every morning, so I know I can get some form of exercise in. And then
good.
two, I know you touched in as far as medicine wise. It took me 5 years to slowly gather myself off. Like a lot of trial and errors, but now I do holistic and naturopathic. And the only reason why I
awesome.
chose to go that route was because I went to the eye. I had eye issues from Paquinil,
Yes.
and
Yep.
I end up legally blind. And they told me if I
wow.
continue to take it, that I was gonna be like,
Well, yeah. Well, there
they're
was
gonna
no
have to
question
do some.
that you needed to
Yeah, it
come
was
off of that.
major.
Yeah.
So I chose to say, okay, I need to find another way, and did some research, and I slowly worked because I have heart problems as well. And I just said, okay, let me slowly just take myself off of things. I would do half a pills, and work my way out and see my naturopathic doctor. Can you give me something that's comparable to this, like turmeric, for example? Can you give me something that'll help with inflammation? Okay, what type of fruits and stuff that I can take, like pineapples, what can I do to kind of, and then I just slowly start doing it. And oh my gosh, I started to feel better than I did when I was taking the medication. I'm still legally blind, but I managed to wean myself off of 15 medications.
There you go.
But hey, it's not peaches and cream. Some days I wish I'd had that pill that helped with that inflammation when my pain was kicking in, because Tylenol ain't doing it,
Yeah.
But it's a struggle. It's a struggle every day when you have to, conform to medications or anything when you have lupus. So
yeah, it's a decision that was kind of made for you.
Yeah.
And you're kind of handed this, and it's now like, what are you going to do with it?
And
You know what
how?
I'm saying? What are you
And
going to
why?
do with it?
Why?
Yes. How are you going to do it? Why? Yes, a lot of whys as well.
Yes.
So, Gabrielle, I know that you sit on a couple of boards, or you have, with respect to lupus. Tell us about what you feel like is currently happening in the area of research that makes you the most optimistic in terms of, what you're learning in the boardrooms and in other advocate groups that you are involved in.
Well, one, I am so happy that they see value in patient advocates. That wasn't always the case. And so I'm happy that they're realizing that there's a perspective that was missing from the conversation, and that they see that our experiences are valuable and very important to inform them on not only the medication that is created, but how to disseminate that medication. And at the end of the day, access to that information. So one of my main things as an advocate is to make sure that minority communities and the underserved communities are aware of what's going on. They're educated, one, about lupus, kind of disowning the stigma that comes with lupus. There's just so many myths and misinformation floating around, particularly in Black and Brown communities, that I've made my mission to dispel.
For example, give us one example.
Sure. One example is that it is contagious.
Yes.
I've heard that a lot. And that's really one of the main things, that it's contagious. And there's just so much literature that goes against that myth, but for some reason, it is still very pervasive as far as the way it traveled. That you will die from it, like that's it. Like that's going to be your avenue. And while, unfortunately, people passing away from it is something that can happen, that is not necessarily your path.
Absolutely.
And so, a lot of our doctors perpetuate this too, because they leave us to Google. And of course, Google and WebMD turns up the worst case scenarios.
Yes.
When there are a lot of people who have milder cases, and then there are people like me who had some organ involvement and some other stuff. And so it's wide ranging. So those are the two things that I'm really seeing that I have to kind of make it a mission to dispel. Another is, I'll always go back to mental, that we have to get out of this place of, I don't want to share my business, because you're sitting here injuring yourself by not sharing your business. You are not getting community and the support you could get if you were willing to share your business. And if it's sharing your business is a problem, then you need to change the people that you're sharing your business with. Personally, I have a tribe of lupus warriors that I trust and have entrusted myself to, that I don't have to translate. When I say I'm tired, they understand that's not just take a nap and get back up. You know what I'm saying? They understand that there's a level of fatigue that I'm working with.
Lots
and
of
they're
fatigue.
sensitive to that.
Yes.
And they're sensitive to that. You know what I'm saying? And so that's something within our community that we need to get away from, and being more vulnerable and watching who we talk to and who we're vulnerable with. That's the key, not the vulnerability. It's who do you have around you that you feel comfortable with and is a safe place. Going back to some of the developments, not just having patient advocates at the table, but also improving the way that we reach minority and underserved communities. We can't assume that everybody has internet. It's absolutely not true. I know it's 2022 and, there's a lot of smartphones, but people have smartphones and don't have internet access or ways to, get these surveys. And so I see a lot of global surveys going out through email, and we need outreach that has face-to-face components. I think email is a great way, and it's a quick way and the most convenient way. And that's the best way for a lot of people, but there's still a contingent of people who their only doctor's appointment is a health fair in their community. And that's where I'm at a lot of times speaking with them. And there's just so many people who have heard about lupus, had an aunt, uncle with it. Unfortunately, some people have passed away. It's in their family. And you're finding a lot of people who are not being reached because they don't have that sense to go and Google or get that information. And the information has to come to them. It has to come to them.
And that's
the only way they're going to be educated.
We had this gentleman who has lupus that we interviewed, and he wants to bring awareness about the percentage of men that he's ran across. He gave a great story about how he went to go and try to get help. And when he went into the room, the women was like, "Hi, can we help you?" Like, you're not supposed to be here.
Right.
And so he felt a little uncomfortable, like, okay, no, I was wrong room kind of per se, So awareness definitely needs, it's so much information that we need to.
Well, he was explaining, I'm going to piggyback on that it was, when he learned about it, it was looked upon as a woman's disease.
Yeah, a woman's disease. Yes.
And now the medication that he's prescribed is
for us.
medication that helps women. There's nothing right now, they're working on it, he said, but there's nothing right now that is really designed for men and the testosterone, that men have that women don't necessarily have in the degrees, to the extent that they do. So we certainly want to have you with us again, because we need to talk about how do we build awareness and build a community. There are a lot of foundations we've talked about that are doing amazing work and doing amazing research. And we want to bring that to community, right?
Yes.
They don't have access to it. They don't know how to find this information. You talked about Googling. LaTonya's talked about Googling. Almost every other guest that we've talked about said they Googled information. So we want to figure out how do we take this collective information that you guys have, as lupus advocates and lupus warriors have, and put it in a safe place where people can come and get information. And that is the work that we're doing at the Love Life Lupus Foundation. And we hope we can count on you to continue to help us do that and provide a place for people to go to so that they feel like they have a community. And information is great, but if that information is not in a place,
it's not helpful.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's not helpful if nobody actually gets the information.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Miss Gabrielle, we could talk forever.
Yes, forever. It's a passion of mine. You were helping me live out my
But
purpose.
she's got to leave us with one word. We need
one word to encourage our lupus warriors
our lupus. Yep.
Okay. My one word to encourage lupus warriors is hope.
Yes.
It is the motivator. It is the driver that will help you continue to do hard things. It is the motivator that will help you to push past those feelings that are telling you to give up, that are telling you that it's not worth it, that you're not worth it. Living this life is not worth it, which is a lie. Hope is what I hold on to, what I held on to in my lowest moments. And it's what keeps me going, because I know there's hope. Even beyond today, there's something greater. There's something left for me to do because I'm here. So that's my word.
That's
hope,
your
hope,
word.
hope,
That's
hope.
our
Continue
word.
to hope.
That is the warrior's word. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I hope, like I said, that you will come back and join us again.
Yeah.
Look at her.
I hope that we can work together to really build a community for
inspire, educate, motivate,
people, underserved people who need hope, who need to see people like yourself living a full life, loving life,
with lupus.
And loving life with lupus. So thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy having Miss Gabrielle Davis with us as much as we have enjoyed having her. And we look forward to seeing you all next time on the Lupus It Chose Me podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Lupus It Chose Me podcast with LaTonya Bias. LaTonya is a native of Chicago, author, and philanthropist. She has a PhD in business and is the founder and CEO of the Love Life Lupus Foundation. Although she battles lupus every day, LaTonya is committed to creating awareness, sharing knowledge, and funding a cure for this disease. Married for more than 20 years, she has 3 children and 3 grandchildren who light up her life. Until next time, LaTonya wants you to remember you can learn to love your life with lupus. You can learn more about LaTonya and her work by visiting the foundation website at lovelifelupusfoundation.org. Her book, Lupus It Chose Me, is available at amazon.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe, share, and listen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to stream.
The opinions of the guest are their own and do not represent the opinions of the Lupus It Chose Me podcast. The podcast content is informational only and is not intended to treat, diagnose, or cure. You should consult with your doctor or medical professional before you make any decisions that could adversely affect your health.